Welcome back to our Hollywood Who Died Today channel. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the lives of talented performers who have left us too soon, often without us even realizing it. From Hollywood icons to rising stars, these individuals made significant contributions to the world of entertainment before they passed away. Join us in honoring their legacy and reflecting on the impact they left behind. Now, let's get started.
We have had a lot of fun with our first guest over the years. Take a look.
64 Emmy Awards, 19 television seasons, the woman who turned a couch and a smile into one of the most powerful media empires in America. But today, at 68, Ellen DeGeneres no longer sits on that stage. Not because she chose to retire in glory, but because a storm, woven from anonymous accusations and the collapse of the very brand she spent a lifetime building, swept everything away in only a few months. And if you think that was the cruelest part of the story, then you have not heard what happened in 1997. You have not heard the price a woman paid for telling the truth on national television. You have not heard about the years she nearly vanished from show business. No contracts, no stage, no one calling. How did a little girl raised in Louisiana, shaped by a fractured childhood and early loss, become the most beloved daytime host in America? What happened behind the applause, behind the daily words, "Be kind to one another"? And why, after everything she lost, did she still choose to step onto a stage one final time? Not to defend herself, but to laugh. To understand that we have to go back to 1958, to a house in Louisiana, where the real story began. Part 1. The Louisiana Girl and the First Wound. Ellen DeGeneres was born on January 26, 1958, in Metairie, Louisiana, a quiet suburb beside New Orleans, where jazz seemed to live in the air and life moved as slowly as the Mississippi River. She grew up in a family so ordinary it was nearly invisible. Her father sold insurance. Her mother worked as a secretary. Her brother, Vance DeGeneres, would later follow a creative path of his own. Ellen's childhood was not defined by material poverty, but it carried another kind of fracture, the quiet pain of a child who sensed she was different from those around her, yet had no language to explain why. Her parents divorced when Ellen was 13. Her mother, Betty DeGeneres, remarried a man Ellen would later describe in rare interviews with careful, measured words. What happened inside that house, what the young Ellen witnessed and endured, she would not fully speak about until decades later, when the pain had cooled enough to become language. But even then, there was one thing she found that felt like rescue: the ability to make people laugh. Not laughter used to mock, not laughter used to wound, but laughter that connects people, the kind that makes someone feel less alone in a doctor's waiting room, in a grocery line, or on an ordinary afternoon when nothing special happens. Ellen discovered that when she made her mother laugh, especially her mother who was carrying pain of her own, the whole room seemed to brighten. And that was a kind of power no school could teach. After high school, Ellen had no clear path. She worked one job after another: waitress, house painter, sales clerk, legal secretary. None lasted very long, not because she was lazy, because none of them made her feel alive. Then one night, she stepped onto the stage of a small coffee house in New Orleans, microphone in hand, and spoke to a room full of strangers as if she had known them all her life. Part 2. The Road to Stardom and Closed Doors. Comedy was not considered a real profession in Louisiana in the early 1980s. It was seen as a joke, quite literally. The practical people around Ellen DeGeneres looked at her with affection mixed with worry. That is a hobby, not a future. But Ellen chose to trust what she had felt on that stage, that when she spoke, people listened. When she laughed, they laughed with her. And when she paused at exactly the right moment, that breath of silence before the punchline landed, the room held still. That kind of connection cannot be faked. She moved first to San Francisco, then to Los Angeles, the center of American comedy at the time. The early years were a grind of tiny clubs, rent paid with tip money, and nights sleeping on friends' couches when money ran out. Comedy was an industry where success was often measured by how many failures you could survive before someone noticed you. And Ellen failed many times, but she also learned something many comedians never do. The best comedy does not always come from anger or cruelty. It comes from observation, the gentle noticing of small things, so ordinary that most people never stop to see them. She found humor in supermarket lines, in the way a cat chooses to sit. In that moment, when you cannot remember if you locked the front door and have to go back to check for the third time. It was comedy built on recognition, and because of that, it belonged to everyone. The turning point came in 1986, in the kind of moment only Hollywood could create. Ellen was invited to appear on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, not only to perform stand-up, but to sit and talk with Johnny Carson afterward. She became the first woman in the show's history to be invited to the guest chair after her debut stand-up set. Carson looked at her through the stage lights and nodded. That was a form of validation no money could buy. From there, the offers came: guest appearances, television specials, then her own sitcom, Ellen, which aired from 1994 to 1998. During those 4 years, Ellen DeGeneres became a familiar face in the living rooms of millions of American families. Warm, safe, beloved. But inside, she was carrying a secret heavier than anything fame had ever placed on her shoulders. Part 3, 1997. When Truth Had a Price, April 1997. Episode 22 of Season 4 of Ellen. Ellen Morgan, the character played by Ellen DeGeneres herself, stepped to an airport microphone and said 3 words that all of America seemed to be waiting for, even if few would admit it: I am gay. It was not only a moment for a fictional character. On that same day, Ellen DeGeneres appeared on the cover of Time with the headline, "Yep, I'm gay." No star of her stature had done this before. No one had risked a thriving career at its height to speak a truth that much of the world preferred to ignore. The reaction came immediately, and it was far harsher than anyone around her had expected. Sponsors withdrew. Some local stations refused to air the episode. Hate mail arrived in bags. Certain religious voices denounced her as a threat to American values. And ABC, the network that had aired Ellen for 4 years, canceled the series after the following season. Within roughly a year of the bravest moment of her career, Ellen DeGeneres lost nearly everything she had built. No one called. No new contracts arrived. Hollywood, a city that often described itself as progressive, bowed to pressure and turned away. She later described those years without bitterness, yet the emptiness beneath her words was unmistakable. I lost my job. I couldn't get acting work for 3 years. I was deeply depressed. I thought my career was over. 3 years in the dark. 3 years in which the woman who had once made America laugh sat alone in a house in Los Angeles, wondering whether telling the truth had been the greatest mistake of her life. But Ellen DeGeneres was never the kind of person who stayed in the dark for long. Part 4. The Comeback, an empire built from ashes. In 2003, Ellen DeGeneres walked into a television studio in Burbank. There was no major network guarantee behind her, no promise of rating success, no certainty at all. Only a concept so simple it was bold. One woman, one desk, one couch, and real conversations with real people. The Ellen DeGeneres Show premiered on September 8, 2003. No one knew it was about to change American daytime television forever. What Ellen built over the next 19 years was more than a talk show. It became a daily ritual of warmth and optimism. Every morning, millions of Americans turned on their televisions not for scandal or celebrity drama, but to watch Ellen dance, to hear her ask the questions no one expected, to witness a single mother receive the keys to a new home, or a struggling teacher surprised with resources for students. 64 Daytime Emmy Awards followed, not because the show had the largest budget, but because it touched something many Americans longed for in an increasingly noisy world: kindness that felt genuine. She turned that spirit into 3 unforgettable words: be kind to one another. And for nearly 2 decades, people believed her. Ellen's comeback was not only the rescue of a career, it was proof that a woman once shut out of Hollywood for being herself could build the door again, larger, stronger, and founded on the very truth for which she had once been punished. Throughout those years, beside her stood Portia de Rossi, the actress Ellen met in 2004 and married in 2008, soon after California legalized same-sex marriage. Portia was not always the most famous person in the room, but she was the person Ellen returned to at the end of every long day. The one who reminded her that beyond the lights and applause, a real life was waiting. Portia never left me, Ellen once said, even when I stopped believing in myself. Part 5. The Storm of 2020 and the Price of a Brand. July 2020. The world was already living through the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything felt unstable. Then an article published by BuzzFeed News appeared and changed everything for Ellen DeGeneres. Anonymous employees from the Ellen DeGeneres Show described a toxic workplace, enforced silence, allegations of racial inequity, and misconduct by senior producers. The story was not centered on Ellen screaming in anger or obvious cruelty. It focused on something more damaging: the distance between the public message of be kind and what some said happened behind the scenes. That was the most dangerous kind of accusation, not a charge of criminal wrongdoing, a charge of hypocrisy. And for Ellen, who had built an empire on the language of kindness, it struck at the center of everything. Warner Media launched an internal investigation. 3 senior producers were removed. Ellen issued an apology internally to staff, then publicly as well. But for much of the public, the verdict had already formed before she could fully respond. In the age of social media, accusations often travel faster than complicated truths. Ratings fell sharply. The nickname Queen of Nice became a weapon turned against her, and Ellen, the woman who had survived 1997, who had rebuilt from ruin once before, now faced a different kind of collapse. Not one driven by outsiders, but by turmoil connected to the world closest to her workplace. In 2022, after 19 seasons, she turned off the studio lights for the final time. Jennifer Aniston, the show's first guest back in 2003, returned for the final episode. The circle closed, but not in the way any of them once imagined. Part 6, Darkness Again, and the question without an answer. After the Ellen DeGeneres show ended, there were months when Ellen DeGeneres nearly disappeared. Not the carefully managed retreat of a public relations strategy, a real disappearance. The withdrawal of someone trying to process a wound. She spoke about it in 2024 during a Q&A after a stand-up performance. It was devastating. I didn't leave the house for a long time. Those accusations hit me very hard, and it took a long time for me to feel like myself again. In that darkness, some things could not be taken away. Portia de Rossi was there every day, not with empty reassurances but with presence, the kind of presence only real love can offer. And there were mornings when Ellen woke up, made coffee, and looked out over the garden in Santa Barbara where they had settled, remembering what she had learned in 1997. She had once lost nearly everything before, and she had rebuilt. But this time was different. This time, there was no empire left to rebuild. Only one question remained. Who am I when there is no stage? Part 7. One last time on stage. In 2024, Ellen DeGeneres did something few people in her position would dare to do. She came back, not to defend herself, not to retell scandal from her own point of view, but to laugh, and to let others laugh with her, even when the story behind the laughter was anything but light. Her tour, Ellen's Last Stand, Up Tour, brought her back to stages across America. And on Netflix, Ellen DeGeneres, For Your Approval, arrived with unmistakable candor. Standing on that stage, she looked at the audience and said, "I got kicked out of show business for being considered mean. This is the second time. The first time, they kicked me out for being gay. This time, for being mean. Next time, they'll kick me out for being old. Mean, old, gay, all three at once. That's the triple crown." The audience laughed, not because it was a gentle joke, because they understood what stood behind it. A woman who had learned how to turn wounds into language, and language into light. That was Ellen DeGeneres at her strongest. Not when she was winning, when she was getting back up. Part 8. Legacy. What no one can take away. Today, Ellen DeGeneres lives in Santa Barbara with Portia de Rossi, close friends, and a garden she tends with the same attention she once gave every episode of her show. No filming schedule. No 5 a.m. mornings rushing to the studio. No pressure to be the queen of Nice for millions of viewers. Only life, real, quiet, and in some ways fuller than anything she had while standing at the top. Her legacy is not measured only by 64 Emmy Awards or historic ratings, though those numbers are real and remarkable. Her deepest legacy lives elsewhere. In 1997, she faced a choice no one else could make for her. Tell the truth and risk losing everything, or stay silent and keep what she had. She chose truth. And the price she paid, years in darkness, a shattered career, Hollywood turning away, was real, not symbolic. Because of that decision, millions of LGBTQ+ people growing up in the 2000s and 2010s saw something many had never seen before. A gay woman who was joyful, successful, widely loved, and unapologetic about all of it. Ellen was not perfect. No one is. The events of 2020, complex, debated, and painful, were also a reminder that public image and private reality can drift apart, even around people with sincere intentions. But some things cannot be undone. The Louisiana girl who once had no idea what she would become changed the rules of American television. The woman pushed aside in 1997 built her own empire back from the ground up. The woman, shaken by the storm of 2020, stood again, stepped onto a stage one final time, and chose to end the story with a smile. Not the smile of someone who won, but the smile of someone who survived and understood that survival can be enough. She told audiences during the final night of her tour, "I'm happy, I'm at peace, and I'm grateful for everything. This is the last time you'll see me on stage." And when the lights went down, when the stage returned to darkness, something still remained. Not fame, not awards. This, a woman who chose truth twice in one lifetime, once when it cost the most, and once when there was nothing left to lose. And both times she chose to stand upright. That is Ellen DeGeneres. That is legacy. And when everything else has passed, that may be the only thing that truly remains. The story of Ellen DeGeneres reminds us that greatness does not come from perfection. It comes from honesty with yourself and with the world, even when honesty carries a price. If this story moved you, share it so more people can hear it.
Modestly speaking, I want to be like a writer.
Dean Tavoularis, the legendary American production designer, passed away on April 23, 2026, at the age of 93 from natural causes in Paris, France, with his death confirmed by writer and film critic Jordan Mincer of The Hollywood Reporter. Born on May 18, 1932 in Lowell, Massachusetts, into a Greek immigrant family who later settled in Los Angeles, Tavoularis trained at prestigious art schools before beginning his career as a storyboard artist at Disney Studios, laying the foundation for one of Hollywood's most remarkable creative journeys. Tavoularis rose to prominence through his groundbreaking collaboration with director Francis Ford Coppola, most notably on The Godfather, 1972, where his dark, warm, painterly aesthetic, crafted alongside cinematographer Gordon Willis, created one of cinema's most iconic and enduring visual identities. His mastery was further recognized when he won the Academy Award for Best Art Direction for The Godfather, Part 2, 1974, a crowning achievement among 5 Oscar nominations that also included Apocalypse Now, 1979, and The Godfather, Part 3, 1990. Throughout his distinguished career spanning decades, Tavoularis brought his extraordinary artistic vision to landmark films, including Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, The Conversation, 1974, and numerous other collaborations with world-class directors such as Wim Wenders and Roman Polanski. The entertainment world mourned deeply at the loss of Dean Tavoularis, a quiet genius who never sought the spotlight, yet whose artistic fingerprints are visible in some of the greatest films ever made. Unlike directors or actors who command public attention, Tavoularis worked in the shadows, shaping the world. Audiences stepped into the moment a film began. His greatest gift was his ability to make audiences feel a world before a single word of dialogue was spoken, whether the shadowy, candlelit halls of the Corleone family or the suffocating jungle heat of Apocalypse Now. That rare talent to communicate emotion purely through space, color, and texture is what elevated him from craftsman to true artist. He is survived by his wife, French actress Aurore Clément, whom he met on the set of Apocalypse Now, and daughters Allison and Gina. In the words of his lifelong collaborator, Francis Ford Coppola, he was a great artist, a great friend, a great production designer, and a great man. He leaves behind not just a filmography, but a masterclass in visual storytelling, proof that the most powerful voices in cinema are sometimes the ones working furthest from the camera.
this guy's going to come to town one time with a big nose and a shock of black hair. He's very talented.
Robert Duvall, a towering legend of American cinema whose extraordinary talent redefined the art of screen acting for over 6 decades, passed away peacefully on February 15, 2026, at the age of 95. Not in some grand Hollywood mansion, but at his beloved farm in Middleburg, Virginia, far from the spotlight he never truly sought. His death was announced by his devoted wife, Luciana Duvall, who shared the heartbreaking news with the world in a deeply personal statement. Yesterday, we said goodbye to my beloved husband, cherished friend, and one of the greatest actors of our time. Bob passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by love and comfort. Born on January 5, 1931, in San Diego, California, to a U.S. Navy Rear Admiral father, Duvall's path to greatness was paved not by privilege, but by sheer, stubborn will. In his early New York years, he shared a cramped apartment with 2 other unknown actors named Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman, working odd jobs, sorting mail, clerking at Macy's, driving trucks, just to keep the lights on. He once recalled waking in the night to flick a cockroach off his teeth, yet he never once considered quitting. That kind of hunger, raw, unglamorous, and deeply American, became the foundation of everything he would later bring to the screen. He rose to international fame as Tom Hagen, the quietly powerful consigliere of the Corleone family in The Godfather, 1972, standing shoulder to shoulder with Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, and holding his own with nothing more than a steady gaze and a measured word. He earned the Academy Award for Best Actor for Tender Mercies, 1983, disappearing so completely into the role of a broken country singer, finding his way back to grace, that his co-star later admitted she only ever knew the character, never the man behind him. His Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore in Apocalypse Now, 1979, and Augustus McCrae in Lonesome Dove, 1989, cemented his place among the most versatile performers in American screen history. Even off-screen, he lived by the same uncompromising code, famously walking away from The Godfather Part 3 rather than accept a salary he considered disrespectful, telling the world simply, "If they offered somebody 5 times what they offered me, it's totally unacceptable." What made Duvall truly irreplaceable was something no award could fully capture: a radical, almost spiritual commitment to disappearing into the truth of a character. While other actors performed, Duvall simply became. He was a man who spent his evenings dancing the tango, who retreated to a farm in Virginia when Hollywood grew too loud, who cared more about getting his Maryland crab cake recipe right than chasing another Oscar. As Luciana so beautifully captured, his passion for his craft was matched only by his deep love for characters, a great meal, and holding court. For anyone who has ever dreamed of mastering a craft on their own terms, his life is the most powerful lesson imaginable. That real greatness is not built in the spotlight. It is built in the quiet, unglamorous years when nobody is watching. He is survived by his beloved wife, Luciana Duvall, the woman who stood by his side until his very last breath. In keeping with his characteristically humble spirit, no formal memorial service was held. His family instead asked the world to honor him the way he truly lived, by watching a great film, sharing an honest story around a table with friends, or simply stepping outside to appreciate the quiet beauty of the world. It was, perhaps, the most Robert Duvall farewell imaginable. No red carpet, no ceremony, just life, lived fully and without pretense.
I don't don't know if that's a fair question because I'm a dancer. Like, you know what I mean? That's like, it's like it's what I do.
Stephen Twitch Boss was not your typical Hollywood star. He did not have a chiseled jawline or a blockbuster franchise behind his name. What he had was something far rarer and far more powerful. A smile so wide and so genuine it could light up a television studio, a pair of legs that seemed physically incapable of standing still, and an energy so infectious that millions of Americans started their mornings better simply because he existed. The world learned with devastating shock on December 13th, 2022, that Twitch had died by suicide at the age of 40 at a hotel in Encino, Los Angeles. His death was confirmed by his beloved wife, Allison Holker Boss, who told the world through tears, "He was the backbone of our family, the best husband and father, and an inspiration to his fans." Born Stephen Laurel Boss on September 29, 1982, in Montgomery, Alabama, Twitch grew up in a world where hip-hop was not just music. It was a language, a lifeline, and ultimately, his calling. He was the kid who could not walk past a mirror without throwing down a move, the teenager who turned school hallways into dance floors, the young man from the Deep South who dared to believe that his body, his rhythm, and his joy could carry him all the way to the top. And they did. His near win as a finalist on So You Think You Can Dance in 2008 introduced him to America not as a contestant, but as a force of nature, a hip-hop artist with the technical precision of a classical dancer and the charisma of someone who had been performing since before he could walk. But it was the 11 years he spent as the heartbeat of the Ellen DeGeneres Show that made Twitch a daily presence in American living rooms. He was not just the DJ. He was the laugh before the first guest walked out. He was the shimmy that made Ellen break character. He was the man who could make a 70-year-old grandmother and a 6-year-old child both jump out of their seats at the same time. Together with his wife Allison, herself a gifted dancer and his partner in every sense of the word, he filled social media with videos of the two of them dancing in their kitchen, in their living room, in front of their Christmas tree, radiating a love so warm and so real that millions of strangers felt like family just watching. When the show ended in May 2022, something shifted quietly and dangerously beneath the surface. The structure that had given his days rhythm and purpose for nearly a decade was suddenly gone. And as Allison would later reveal in her memoir, the silence that followed gave him space to wander into corners of his mind that were far darker than anything his audience had ever seen. What made Twitch's story so heartbreaking and so urgently important was the devastating gap between what the world saw and what was quietly unraveling inside. The same man who posted a joyful dancing video with his wife just hours before his death was a man quietly drowning in a pain he did not know how to name out loud. His friend and Magic Mike co-star Jada Pinkett Smith said it with a grief that stopped the world. So many people suffer in silence. I wish he could have known that he didn't have to. That sentence, 7 words of sorrow followed by 7 words of hope, may be the most important thing said about Twitch since his passing. Because it is not just about him. It is about every person reading these words right now who is carrying something heavy and carrying it completely alone. Twitch was, in the most profound and painful sense, a living portrait of hidden depression, the kind that wears a perfect smile, hits every beat, and suffers in the silence between the songs. For the Black community in America, his death cracked open a conversation long overdue. That strength does not mean suffering in silence, that joy and pain can live in the same body at the same time, and that asking for help is not weakness, it is survival. He is survived by Allison Holker Boss, the dancer who was his partner on the floor and in life, and their 3 children, Wesley, Maddox, and Zaya, who will grow up knowing their father made the world dance. Twitch did not need a superhero's body or a leading man's face. He had something better, the ability to walk into a room and make every single person in it feel like the music was written just for them. That gift does not die. It lives in every person who ever smiled watching him move, and in every honest conversation his death has inspired about the invisible battles we never see coming. If his story teaches us anything at all, it is this: check on your people, even the ones who seem fine, especially the ones who seem the happiest. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out. Call or text 988 anytime. Free, confidential, and available 24 hours a day. You do not have to carry this alone.
Determined by the individual. And her intent and my intent were different, and that's why we separated.
Anne Heche was not the kind of woman Hollywood knew how to hold. She was too honest, too complicated, too willing to say out loud the things that others spent entire careers carefully hiding. And on August 11th, 2022, the world lost her far too soon, when the actress, author, and survivor passed away at the age of 53, 1 week after her Mini Cooper veered off a road in the Mar Vista neighborhood of Los Angeles and crashed into a residential home, igniting a fire that would take everything. She never regained consciousness. Her death was confirmed by her family and representatives, and in one of her final acts of quiet generosity, her life support was maintained until August 14th so that her organs could be donated to save others. Even at the end, Anne Heche was giving. Born on May 25, 1969, in Aurora, Ohio, Anne grew up in a household where survival was not a metaphor. It was a daily reality. Her family was so poor, they were once evicted from their home and forced to live inside a church. But the deepest wound was not poverty. In a 2001 interview on Larry King Live, Anne revealed that she had been repeatedly sexually abused by her father throughout her childhood. Then, in March 1983, her father died of HIV/AIDS, leaving a 13-year-old girl to carry unimaginable grief entirely alone. To cope with that pain, she later admitted she spent the first 31 years of her life drowning in alcohol, drugs, and reckless behavior. She even created an entire imaginary world in her mind, a place she called the fourth dimension, just to feel safe enough to keep going. That is not weakness. That is what survival looks like when no one is there to help you. And yet, from those broken pieces, Anne Heche built something extraordinary. She burst onto the national stage with her dual role as twins, Vicki Hudson and Marley Love, in the soap opera Another World. A performance so commanding, it earned her a Daytime Emmy Award. She followed that with a string of Hollywood films that proved she could hold her own against anyone. Donnie Brasco, Wag the Dog, alongside Robert De Niro, I Know What You Did, Last Summer, and 6 Days, 7 Nights, opposite Harrison Ford. She earned a Tony Award nomination for her Broadway work and an Emmy nomination for Gracie's Choice. In July 2022, just weeks before her fatal accident, she completed her final role in HBO's The Idol, working until the very last chapter of her life. But no chapter of Anne Heche's story captured America's attention or its imagination. quite like her relationship with Ellen DeGeneres in the late 1990s, at a time when Hollywood enforced silence around anything that deviated from the norm. Anne and Ellen walked onto a red carpet together and simply refused to hide. They became one of the first openly gay female couples in Hollywood history, a decision that cost Anne dearly, with studios pulling roles and industry doors quietly closing around her. She paid a professional price that few in her position would have been willing to pay, yet she paid it without flinching. When their relationship ended in 2000, Anne was found wandering the streets in her underwear and was briefly hospitalized, a window into how deeply she felt everything, how little armor she actually had beneath that fearless exterior. Upon learning of Anne's passing, Ellen wrote simply, "I'm sending Anne's children, family, and friends all of my love." 7 words, but from Ellen, who had shared so much of her own life with Anne, they carried the weight of an entire era. What Anne Heche leaves behind is not just a filmography or a footnote in LGBTQ+ history. She leaves behind a lesson that America, and Hollywood especially, still needs to learn, that the most courageous thing a person can do is tell the truth about their own life, even when the truth is ugly, even when the industry punishes you for it, even when no one is ready to hear it. She wrote 2 memoirs. She spoke openly about abuse, addiction, and mental illness at a time when celebrities simply did not do that. She paved roads that others now walk freely. Her son Homer said it most simply and most beautifully. "Hopefully, my mom is free from pain and beginning to explore what I like to imagine as her eternal freedom." She is survived by her sons Homer and Atlas, 2 young men who will grow up knowing their mother was, above all else, brave enough to be exactly who she was. He is survived by her sons Homer and Atlas, 2 young men who will grow up knowing their mother was, above all else, brave enough to be exactly who she was. As her son Atlas said simply and beautifully, "My mom was the brightest person I've ever known. She always knew how to solve a problem or help a friend. I cannot put into words how grateful I am or how much I miss her." Anne Heche was many things: a survivor, a pioneer, a storyteller, a mother, and one of the most courageously honest women Hollywood has ever seen. She did not live a perfect life. She lived a real one. And in a world that too often rewards the performance of happiness over the truth of human struggle, that is the rarest and most valuable thing of all. If Anne's story moved you, if it made you think differently about the people around you, the ones who seem fine, the ones who seem strong, the ones who never ask for help, then her legacy is already living inside of you. Subscribe to our channel and join us as we continue to honor the lives, the legacies, and the untold stories of the people who shaped our world. The next story is waiting for you.